Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Stuart to the stage. I like it. Thanks for joining us, Stuart.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So it seems like it's been a pretty crazy ride with Signpost. I'd love to start at the beginning and talk a little bit about the company that you founded in 2010.
Yeah, so started the company in 2010. It actually started as a business plan. I was in business school at the time, so I entered the business plan competition in 2009, but I didn't really get the courage to start the company until I moved to New York. So initial business idea was basically taking advantage of mobile, and so it was getting people to kind of post tips and like cool events or specials at local businesses, using their mobile phone to be geotagged. You could kind of vote things up or down, and then you could go and search for things around you. And the monetization approach was charging businesses for premium content. So surprisingly, kind of similar to where Foursquare, I think, is headed today. Obviously, you know, we weren't even close to their scale, but I think what we learned was that when we were talking to small businesses, there were hundreds of different things that they had to manage. And so rather than be yet another advertising platform that was part of the noise, we wanted to become the solution for small businesses. And so today, Signpost is a marketing automation platform. We have no kind of consumer-facing component for us as a business, but what we try to do is help businesses succeed in an increasingly connected world. And so today, if you're a small business owner, it used to be you could buy an ad in the yellow pages, and most of everything else you did was pretty straightforward. Today, there's a lot of things you have to manage as a business owner that range from Yelp to Google Plus to Facebook to getting reviews and engagement from your existing base. Foursquare is like releasing new things. Facebook's doing different things. So it's becoming really difficult for these businesses to be successful. And so Signpost is a subscription platform. The businesses pay us between $150 and $200 a month. We help them kind of automate all of their front office with a focus on helping them get new customers and engage their existing base.
Great. Is everybody, even in the back, are you able to hear us okay? Awesome. Great. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what drew you to small businesses in the first place.
Yeah, so I come from a family of small business owners. My oldest sister was actually a software engineer. She got her MBA, decided she wanted to follow her passion of being a small business owner, and started a pottery studio in Indiana. It's a Signpost customer, luckily.
Okay.
But when I was in business school, I tried to help her advertise on Google AdWords. Spent a lot of time between the two of us. Really got like literally no results for like $1,000.
Really?
It was a lot of money for her at the time, and so that kind of inspired me that if two MBAs and a computer scientist can't figure this out, like this is a problem that's probably applying to a lot of people. So, since then, I think I have 3 family members that are on the platform today. They don't even tell, they'll sign up. Yeah. I think our sales reps will accidentally sell them, but yeah, so it's been a great run.
Awesome. Yeah, it's certainly not in the wheelhouse of a small business mom and pop shop to do digital marketing. What was the real key transition? You said that you were sort of building something akin to Foursquare, sort of the discovery app now. What led you to change tack and really move toward providing those services to help people market their businesses digitally?
I think the realization for me, so I was, our first sales rep, so I was going out, really door to door, talking to small businesses and trying to get them to sign up for this new service we created.
That must have been fun.
Yeah, no, it's the most fun I never want to have again.
Do you remember the first person you signed up?
I do. Yeah, I actually signed up my barber.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
Neat.
Don't judge. But yeah, so I was going out. I was talking to businesses, and every time I'd go talk to them, I quickly realized that I was one of many people that these guys had talked to. And it was incredibly complex. They didn't have a lot of time to talk to me or anybody else. They clearly kind of understood that it was important, and they didn't really know what platforms worked, which ones didn't. And so again, our view was, even if we were a very successful destination consumer mobile site, we were still going to be one of 20 platforms that they had to manage. And so our value proposition was always going to be, this is one of X number of things that you can advertise on. And so that was really the inspiration for me, is some of my fun days out talking to businesses and selling.
Yeah, I can imagine. You are not the only business who's jumped into this space. There are a lot of small business service providers who are focused on sort of aggregating data from small businesses and helping them post data to all sorts of different platforms, from Yelp to Foursquare to everything else. What sets you apart, or how have you been able to survive in a crowded market?
So I think it's a market that looks crowded if you kind of look at it on the surface. A couple of things I'd note. One is it's growing very quickly. So small businesses, local small businesses in the U.S. spend $40 billion a year on advertising. That's split between still a decent amount, almost 50% going into print advertising, yellow page ads, billboards, kind of traditional media. Obviously that's in decline. There's a lot of money now going into kind of marketing yourself online. So I think businesses are starting to realize that that's important. So it's a fast-growing market. 14 to 15% annual compound annual growth rate. The other thing I'd note is we actually think a lot of the solutions out there are not good for small businesses. So it's relatively early. There are a lot of people out there that have made progress, but the businesses are still struggling to manage a lot of complexity and use things that actually work for them. And I think nobody's really solved that yet. So I think there is a lot of opportunity in this space. And if you look at how individual players in the market are different, even though on the surface they're advertising solutions for small businesses, the way that they execute that is very different, and we think that we're very unique in that way.
You mentioned your barber. What have been the sectors that have been sort of have really gravitated towards Signpost?
Great question. Not barbers, even though that was our first. So I think we do want to take a horizontal approach. So our objective is creating something that works for pretty much any category of small business, and also a pretty wide range of size. So actually we use a descriptor local businesses because we focus on brick and mortar. We actually deal with some franchise businesses that have dozens or hundreds of locations. So it's not only your kind of small mom and pop. In terms of where we've seen traction, it's been everything from doctors, so dentists, chiropractors, ophthalmologists, to beauty, spa, salons, active life, so people that are teaching sailing lessons. So it's pretty broad.
Great. What are some of the, without giving any names, what are some of the bigger businesses that are using your platform?
I think they're all unique. So when most people think about small or local businesses, you think about restaurants or something where like a lot of us go, pretty often. Obviously, everybody here,
walk past
goes to
10
restaurants
on every block. Yeah,
exactly. The lion's share of SMB are like very unique businesses. So it could be like a rental car company or a dance studio, or there's a lot of kind of very unique businesses. Each one of them has a unique story, and some of them scaled to become very successful companies with 50 locations, but it's not necessarily your kind of corner coffee shop that's in downtown Manhattan.
So I guess that brings up, how do you, as a company that really specializes in marketing, how do you market yourselves? How are you actually going out and bringing in new customers for your own business?
Great question. I think the starting point for me would be developing a great product first. So everything that you do with marketing becomes a lot easier for you if what you're actually selling is something that resonates with the businesses and it works for the people that you're signing up. So that makes it a lot easier. So the importance of that, I think, can't be understated. Other than that, we do invest in kind of marketing ourselves. I think most companies, whether you look at Apple and businesses that I think have a great reputation, obviously are investing a lot in advertising. Yeah. It's everything from content marketing, where we'll write articles that are kind of about like how businesses can solve these problems, even independent of Signpost. From that, we'll have kind of calls to action to come to the Signpost site, referrals from existing customers, and then we do have a sales and marketing team.
Okay. Do you know of any marketing that you're doing that's offline, that's not digital? Surprise question.
Surprise question. So we, if you consider, the sales component of what we do, not digital, that does happen. So we do leverage it, however. So we'll look and find small businesses that are paying, in a category that we think is a good category for Signpost, where they get a lot of value. We'll see that they're paying for a competing service. That could be they're paying for Yelp, they've paid for AdWords, they're paying a company called Yodel. That's a good indicator for us that we can create a lot of value for them. We think that we have a product that's much better than some of those names I listed, and so we'll actively, proactively reach out to those businesses and kind of explain our value proposition. And that's really the most targeted approach you can take, because any form of digital marketing, you're as targeted as you can try to be. It's really difficult to say like this specific business.
Yeah, and sales has become a really big part of your business, as I understand it. How many? So you have roughly 200 employees now?
So, yeah, 200 employees.
Yep.
Of that, around 45 are sales reps.
Got it.
We have another base of sales reps that are kind of in training. So we've been hired. They've been hired recently.
Yep.
Hopefully, they will soon kind of join a sales team. But today, they're being trained.
Okay, great. You're certainly a company that's grown very quickly from 20 to 200, I think we said, in the last 2 years. How do you, have you established a onboarding system that works really well, and how do you sort of continue to bring in new salespeople, new employees, and not have the company really change internally?
So I think that's a clearly difficult question. I don't think there's any right answers. So the expression we use is there are no silver bullets, only lead bullets. I guess that's not mine. That's that's been an expression for a long time. But there's a lot you have to do. I would say like it is a big focus of mine. And so it used to be early days, even when we're back to 10 people, we had dinner together, every night. Everyone knew each other. It was very easy for me to kind of explain what we were trying to accomplish and for people to be on the same page. And I think as we've grown, we not only have 200 employees, we also have offices in Austin and Denver, and we have a number of people working remotely. So we have someone in Santa Barbara. It's very spread out. So it's become a challenge for us, both because of the volume of people and the fact that we're geographically distributed. So I'd say there's no one thing that we've done right. We do really emphasize culture. I think for me, when I thought about starting the company, like I obviously want to work somewhere where I want to come to work every day, and I hope that everyone else there is the same way. So we try to make sure there are core components of culture that exist and don't change. We do invest a lot in onboarding, and then we also do some things. I think some of the hardest stuff to replicate is the personal connection that you have when you're a really small company. You can't just solve that with having, really great training or really great, onboarding materials. And so one example of things we do is have a mentor program. On the sales side, the mentors are very active. They might even be helping their mentees actually kind of close their first few sales. Okay. There's an incentive for them to be helpful. Yep. And that's something that just, forces us to have that personal touch with everyone that enters the company. Great.
That's really interesting. What are some of the other mechanics of your onboarding process? How long is someone in training before they become sort of they're left on their own to close their own deals?
Yeah, so it depends on what we're hiring for. So I think there is kind of no defined training program if you're joining our tech team. That's obviously an area where we're investing a lot in hiring. Same thing with the executive team. There's less formal training. Everyone goes through a week. We have people start at the same time every month. There's a week-long program that involves kind of an overview from me, interaction from different execs, learning about the company, learning about the values. Everyone goes through that program regardless of whether they're a developer or on the sales team. Yeah. On the sales side, then, they go into a 2-month training program. Our goal is to get them to really be productive pretty quickly. And so one benefit that we have is there are so many small businesses that as the reps kind of getting up to speed, it's not like we're selling to Google and it's going to take 6 months before we're comfortable with them having a conversation. Yeah. If they're still a little rough around the edges, it's okay for us for them to learn by doing. So we try to get them talking to small businesses pretty quickly. And by the end of their second month, most of our sales reps are doing about 80% of what they'll do once they actually enter kind of the rest of the sales floor.
Right. Great. I'd love to dig a little bit into sort of the changing landscape of marketing in general. I know, when you were in business school, the thing really was AdWords, and Google was really starting to make a lot of their bones on SEM and display advertising, and now it's splintered so much more. There are 50 different ways that there are 50 different types of digital marketing that a small business could do without even blinking. How does Signpost really manage a lot of the changing landscape? you know, the situation right now might be might be completely different than 6 months from now?
I think, so there are some things that will never change. So we think small businesses really care about getting new customers and engaging the customers that they have. And even if you go back 20 years, like that was that was the focus of these businesses. And if you think about a local business, you have really high fixed costs, you're paying rent, you're paying for employees. And so your utilization, like the number of people that are coming in, is incredibly important to you. So if you think about a doctor as an example, anytime the doctor is sitting in his or her office and not seeing a patient is a pretty big lost opportunity. So we think the need to get new customers and engage existing has always been there. The tactics for accomplishing that, we think, are changing rapidly, and kind of that curve is growing at an exponential rate. So I think it is becoming more complicated. In a lot of ways, there's even more opportunity for small businesses, but it's become harder for them to manage. And so part of our value proposition is that our compass is providing an ROI for the business. So whenever we see something happen that we think is going to allow us to be more effective for our customers, we'll move towards that pretty aggressively. So as an example, as Google Plus kind of integrated into Google Maps, Google Search, there's a lot of areas now where Google Plus, even though a lot of us may not use it as a social network, is now very important if you're a small business. We see that and then kind of pull that into our product offering. So we think it's easier for a company like Signpost to kind of see the changing landscape adjust on behalf of thousands of businesses than each of those businesses do it themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there new marketing technologies that you think are going to be important 6 months from now? Anything that you see emerging?
I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting things going on. One category that we think is overlooked is the number of businesses that focus on kind of their existing customer base. And so a lot of the money that's being spent today is really focused on new customer acquisition. So you're putting money into Google AdWords to get leads that hopefully then convert to customers. You're spending money on Groupon and daily deals to get people to buy an offer in hopes that they come back and actually spend enough that you're generating revenue. So a lot of the dollars spent of kind of that 40 billion is all on new customer acquisition. We think a bucket that's overlooked is engaging your existing base. So if you think about kind of understanding who are your best customers, getting them to write reviews, refer you to friends, come back again if they haven't been there for a while, that's actually a really good ROI for a local business. Yeah. It's something that we think is generally overlooked. Most local businesses today have literally no data on any of their existing base. They have no idea who their best customers are, who transacts with them the most often, who's kind of come like clockwork once a week and then dropped off over the past month. Right. That information just isn't being collected or acted on by small businesses. And we think that there's a big opportunity there.
Awesome. Just a reminder, you can tweet questions at #StartupGrindNYC. What do you think is the future of Signpost, at least over the next several months, if not the next few years? How are you going to continue to grow as a company?
Again, I think there's no one answer. So the stuff that probably excites me the most is on the product side. So thinking through what are we doing that is differentiated, defensible as a company, and really going to generate a return for our customers. So we're always trying to innovate there. I think we have some exciting announcements coming out. I know we have some exciting announcements coming out in the next few months. So that's what excites me the most. And again, like our mandate is, how do we generate the best return for our customers? How do we create something that is, very sticky and something that's defensible? On the growth side, I mean, we're continuing to grow. So we're hiring 20 to 30 people a month, which is certainly a challenge from an operational perspective, but that's been going very well. So that's also going to be fun over the next few years.
Awesome. We will start jumping into questions now. We have one from Idea4. Can you raise your hand in the back there? He says, it sounds like your team could write content for me. Is that right? And if it is, why should I trust them? So are you doing actually content creation?
So we focus less on content creation. So one, I'd say you can trust me, just sign it. But we think about ourselves, there's kind of like three buckets of companies. So there's they're kind of do-it-for-me businesses that are writing content or creating AdWords campaigns. that's like a very people-intensive business.
Yeah.
We see ourselves more as a software company where we're providing a subscription service. We're not doing a lot of kind of custom-generated content, but we are helping businesses kind of plug into Google+, Yelp, Facebook, know who their customers are, re-engage those people. So we're less on the kind of agency type business.
Yeah.
That said, I think if you kind of look at the three categories, so there's kind of the agency model, there's do-it-yourself software, where it's a tool, but the business still has to be using it. So think of Constant Contact. If I use Constant Contact, I still have to generate my own email list. I still have to write every email myself.
Right.
Average business spends 5 hours and sends an email once a quarter. So that can be a little bit of friction.
Yeah.
We kind of strive to be a software company that's really highly automated. So the business tells us what they want to accomplish,
Yep.
but the technology becomes invisible and executes on their behalf. That's difficult to achieve successfully, but we think that's the right business model for this market.
Yeah. I'm sure along those lines, we have a lot of businesses here in the audience. Are there ways that startups could take advantage of your platform as well? Maybe companies that don't necessarily have a brick and mortar location?
So today we're focused on brick and mortar. So we've said small business a few times. I've said small business a lot. Like we're really focused on brick and mortar because that's where we think there's the most opportunity for us to create value. So
Yeah.
brick and mortar location, it could be a service business, so you don't have to necessarily have like a physical storefront, but you're going out to see people is the specialty. I think at some point we may expand, but for the sake of doing focus and doing something very well, we limit ourselves to brick and mortar.
Great. All right, we have a few more questions. Where is Dan Russell? Can you raise your hand? Also in the back there. Great. Dan says, how do you market a monthly fee with a small business which only reconsiders investments monthly and is emotionally driven?
Yeah, great question. So we think businesses think about expenses in two ways. So there are operating expenses, which is paying for things like electricity, utilities, your lease, your rent, even paying for software that covers back office things like taxes, payroll, accounting. Those are things you kind of have to do to be in business.
Yeah.
You make a decision that you're going to, kind of engage in those expenses, and then you're going to pay those things as long as you're in business. We think the components of marketing that we're focused on are equally as essential. Businesses aren't quite there yet, but I think they're increasingly realizing that this is absolutely critical for them as a business and something they can't do themselves.
Right.
And so we'd like to think of ourselves as this is really, essential marketing for you. So it's $150 a month. You really don't have to do anything else. You can focus on what you do best, which is running your business, and know that you're going to have someone doing, the components that you don't like doing and aren't an expert at, much better than you could do yourself. So that's where we get to. We also, similar to other SaaS businesses, a lot of the people that sign up do commit to use Signpost for a year. So there's a fair amount of investment up front for us to get the account set up.
Yeah.
And so in return for that, we do look for people that are able to commit, because the people that are only willing to do it month to month tend not to be good customers for us. So we add that kind of 12-month requirement just to make sure we're filtering out and the people that are signing up are going to be good customers.
How much are you actually able to track back the engagement that you are generating to show businesses that you're actually giving them revenue?
So there are a lot of ways you can proxy that. I can't make any product announcements today, but I would say that we are getting closer and closer to closing the loop. So again, back to what I was saying about what businesses value, they do think, unlike big enterprise that kind of thinks about how they're going to manage marketing, they think about the world in a little more simple terms. In some ways, I think that might be a good thing for them, but get new customers, engage existing. So today, we can do everything from seeing if someone writes a review or engages or opens an email. That type of behavior is relatively easy for us to track, or finds you on a social profile.
Yeah.
I would say we're very interested in closing the loop so we can actually have a very clear, transparent ROI for the businesses.
Yeah. Great. The next question we have from Natasha Green. Right. Hey. She asks, I wonder why I should choose Signpost if Groupon acquires the customer and just splits the money with me. So I guess Groupon is offering to actually not only bring you a customer, but do a revenue share with you.
Yep.
Why would I go with Signpost instead?
So I wouldn't say you have to use necessarily one or the other. So I think both have benefits. You know, in terms of Groupon specifically, it's only focused on new customer acquisition. You know, obviously the advantage is people are paying in advance. And there's a rev share. I think one of the disadvantages is that for Groupon's business, Groupon's marketing largely is to get customers that are good for Groupon. Right. The people that are good for Groupon are people that buy offers with pretty high frequency. I think the marketing message from Groupon is your city at 90% off. So the person who's seeing their city at 90% off is buying a lot of Groupons, eating lunch every day at 90% off, but not actually going back to the business. Right. We think rather than kind of firing the shotgun and sending a 50% off discount offer to millions of people, it's much better to focus on more essential marketing and engaging the people that are actually looking for your business, have found your business, or have already transacted with your business. Right. And so if you're a bit more focused on those customers, you're much more likely to actually, convert a new prospect that's going to become a real valuable customer for you. That's not going to come in just because of a 50% off offer. Right. And you're much more likely to get your existing base to review, refer, or repeat and come back to your business. So without having kind of a financials chart here, I think if you compare kind of what we try to accomplish with some of the very acquisition-centric businesses, we think it's a much better return on investment.
Yeah, on the face of it, Groupon does seem like a money-losing proposition too. If they're taking 50% of your what would be profit, basically, they're just chopping out your entire margin as a small business owner. Doesn't seem, and especially if those customers are not coming back to you, it doesn't seem like a good proposition.
I mean, I think that the challenge is most small businesses kind of understand, because you're really getting 25 cents on the dollar because you're offering a 50% discount. Groupon then takes, it's actually come down a little bit, but call it 40 to 50% of the remaining revenue. Right. Very few businesses are making a good margin on that. So that's difficult. So then, it could be valuable if you believe these people are actually going to have a great experience at your business and then come back. Right. There's some challenges there just in terms of the people that are on average buying a Groupon, but again, I'd say every business is unique, and I think you have to make the decision for your own business.
Yeah. Is Daniel Silver here? Can you raise your hand? Hey, Dan. So he's asking, how are you engaging and cross-selling existing customers? So you mentioned existing customer engagement. I wonder if you could dig into that a bit.
Yeah, so we, again, without going into too much detail on an upcoming product announcement, but we try to do as much as we can to basically collect data for the business on who their existing customers is. So this could be someone that, saved a special, sent an email, or somehow has interacted with that business before. Whenever we get their information, we try to re-engage them with kind of personalized, timely, customized messaging that is based on their past behavior. So again, for us, it's all about getting, the most information in, both in terms of like who these people are, and then contextual data on, how they interacted with your business. And when you have both of those things, you can send messages that could be anything from a thank you for visiting today to, please submit a survey on how your experience was, a friends and family offer, which is something that, a lot of people in retail do, kind of the big box stores. So I'd say the general theme for us is get as much information as we can on who your customers are, how they're interacting with your business, and then send customized messages to get them to engage with you. We do, yes. We try to track as much as we can.
Sorry, he asked, do you have tracking links to measure conversions, just so everybody can hear? Sorry.
Yeah, and the answer is yes.
All right. We kind of skipped over it a little bit, but you and I had talked earlier about this idea that Signpost as a product actually moves very quickly. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about the process behind how you are changing your product as the marketing landscape changes. Because especially, you didn't say exactly how many people are on your product team now, but it sounds like you have quite a large product team. So how do you still manage to move very nimbly and quickly?
I think it gets harder the bigger you are as a company. I think it is one of our strengths. So if you kind of rewind back to 2010, there were a number of businesses doing similar things. There were a number of businesses kind of competing directly with Groupon. A lot of those people aren't around today, and I think the difference is like people make big bets where they're not able to kind of iterate and respond to customer feedback, or you make a lot of smaller bets and you try to kind of optimize to have the fastest iterations possible. So that's been a strength of ours. I think that's why we've kind of thrived, whereas others, you know, peer companies. I actually think I came, the last time I was in this room, I was watching the CEO from Buy With Me talk. Buy With Me was a Groupon competitor that I think sold to Gilt, but yeah. So the iterating, I think, is incredibly important when we get to the size we are. I mean, one of the benefits is that we have thousands of conversations with businesses on a weekly basis. So getting feedback from the people that are using it, the people that we're talking to, our sales reps, our account managers, is incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
And we just try to get that into our culture of kind of always challenging assumptions and coming up with ways to provide more value.
Do you have a system that allows the insights that your sales and marketing teams are getting to work their way back to the product team?
So we, there's a lot of information at the company, I would say, but one example is even for the businesses that we don't close, the sales rep within Salesforce will kind of fill out how the conversation went. And so they could say, you know, here's what the person valued the most in what I described. Here were their concerns. You know, here's some stats about the business. And from that, we get pretty good data on how, you know, what's resonating, what's not resonating. And then obviously we have even much better data of the people that have signed up because we can see what's actually happening with their business. Right. What's been interesting for us is there is a disconnect between what we think of as the willingness to pay. So what the business is most receptive to on kind of a, you know, marketing message or a conversation, and what actually works the best for the business. And so we try to spend 80% of our time only focused on what actually works, and then find a way to present it to the merchant. But we also get feedback on, you know, what they think is the most important. That may not always be in line with what we think is most important.
Are there any specific things you can call out that these potential customers tend to be very focused on that aren't actually that important?
Yeah, I mean, you know, for example, like our POV on some customer acquisition models is that it's pretty high cost for the business. So just looking at AdWords as an example, some categories of businesses are paying over $100 to get a lead. The value of those leads we think is relatively low compared to, as an example, someone that found you on Yelp, called you, but then didn't transact. Yeah. If you compare the two, the person that, you know, found you and engaged is someone who's very likely to be a relevant customer. Like they were looking for a business like yours, they called you, and then something happened. You know, there's a big difference between sitting in front of my computer and, you know, calling a restaurant tonight and actually showing up, versus someone who, you know, maybe clicks through an ad on AdWords and enters their email address. So the perception may be this is, you know, valuable for my business, but when you look at the economics of what are you paying to get someone to show up to your business, in a lot of cases it doesn't look good.
Great. The next question is from Venkat. Venkat, where are you? Hey, Venkat. So his question is, early on in the business, did you pace your growth? Why or why not? Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
So did you say like acquire 20 customers and then after that decide let's not acquire any more customers, let's focus on the product, or was that not even on your mind?
So did you acquire a certain number of customers, then work with those customers, then acquire more customers, then work with those customers, or was it more of a straight growth trajectory?
I think there's always that trade-off. We've never kind of intentionally said like no new customers, but we will make trade-offs where we're developing a new product or we're testing something, and so we kind of intentionally lower our sign-up velocity for the sake of testing a new product, developing a new product, or we might release something. Back to the disconnect necessarily between the willingness to pay and the actual value provided. We might release something that provides a lot more value than what we provided before, but we take something away that the business was very receptive to. So there's certainly been kind of that curve. We do try to put the product first and not just develop things that merchants might necessarily be the most receptive to. And I'd say especially during kind of big pivots, like moving from a consumer-facing app to where we are today, you know, velocity went way down in terms of usage. I mean, we did have, you know, pretty significant usage of the app at some point, and we turned that off.
You hired a new VP of product as well, is that correct?
We did.
Okay, just very recently. How's it going?
It's been great. He couldn't join us tonight. Our VP of Tech is back there, so he has a better view than me because he works with them all the time. It's Seth Purcell. It's been great. So David Palatiel is his name. He was the Chief Product Officer at Fab.
Yeah.
Was at Quidsy before that. Has been really amazing for us. So great to have him on the team.
Awesome. Great. We have one more question from Dan Russell. Dan, there you are again. How do you monitor ROI for client companies, and how do you convince them to share that data? So specifically, we've already addressed the ROI component, but what's the value prop to really get a small business to share what they might consider very valuable data?
So I guess I'm not sure I'm clear, like valuable data in terms of who?
So the amount of sales that they're doing every month, or the some of what they might consider proprietary information.
I mean, I think for a lot of our businesses, they don't have the data today. So because they're using Signpost, they're now for the first time getting access to data. Trust is very important, especially for a lot of these small businesses have been burned. You know, they've tried things themselves that haven't worked. They've been sold on something that was not the right fit for their business. So trust matters. But I think if we can kind of position why the data is going to create value for them, generally people are receptive to it. So anything we can do that simplifies their life so they can focus on what they enjoy doing and are best at, which is running their business, and is actually going to drive an ROI for them, people tend to be pretty supportive of that. So that rebuttal has not come up very often.
That's great. All right. Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Have fun.